On this Thursday night, Canada uploads its artificial intelligence strategy.
New legislation, regulations and standards to protect your data, your privacy.
Plus, his plan for sovereign AI in Canada and the ambitious timeline to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. Do you think he's overpromising? A new projection about Canada's deepening deficit, how it conflicts with the finance minister's forecast. Doug Ford's penchant for private planes, why the Ontario Premier is defending his travel expenses.
I'm going to continue to charter when needed.
Plus, no food, no oxygen, and defying death. The Sherpa found alive on Mount Everest after being lost for 6 days.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. As governments around the world grapple with how to harness the benefits of artificial intelligence at the same time as managing its risks, Canada's Prime Minister has unveiled a strategy to deal with the rapidly developing technology. Mark Carney promises to protect data, privacy and children in what is a multi-billion-dollar, multi-year plan to make Canada a global AI leader and create jobs. That means building data centres to store Canadian data and reduce our dependence on foreign companies. David Akin takes us through how the government is planning to achieve this and what's missing from the strategy.
The 40-page plan is called AI for All.
That's AI governed by Canadian values.
The strategy recognizes that many Canadians are skeptical of AI and that new rules and new laws will be needed for the AI era.
Under our strategy, the government will introduce new legislation, regulations and standards to protect your data, your privacy, your children.
At the core of the plan is a recognition that too much AI infrastructure is controlled by foreign, mostly American, technology companies.
That creates real risks that foreign entities could access Canadian data, deploy AI products that shape Canadian lives without reflecting our values, and tilt the playing field against Canadian firms.
To that end, Ottawa will build a national public supercomputer, expand Canadian-owned computer and cloud infrastructure, and build new fibre and satellite links to keep internet traffic inside Canada. And while some are worried AI use will lead to job losses, the government says its plan will help create nearly 350,000 new jobs by 2031 in AI-related fields or through new businesses enabled by AI tools, although details on just how that will be done were sketchy.
It's a very ambitious plan which lacks a lot of details that I think Canadians have been waiting for a very long time.
I think we definitely will need something more. At the same time, to be, we have to be realistic. The goal of this is to be a 5-year strategy.
The bottom line for all of this, well, the AI for All document contains about $2.9 billion in new initiatives. But the document also says existing federal programs will be used to accomplish the plan's objectives. And that means that the overall amount associated with this new AI strategy could be close to $8 billion. Donna.
Okay, David Akin in Ottawa, thank you.
Today we announced that we're not going to move ahead with the data center in Ile-des-Chênes because there's a big threat to the environment and not much benefit to the economy.
That is Manitoba Premier Rob Canoe. He says a massive proposed AI data centre in the province is not a good idea. It would have been mostly powered by natural gas. Canoe says he believes the sheer size of the project, the energy it would consume, and its impact on the community outweighed the limited gains. A little later, a Canadian expert on artificial intelligence will help us dig a little deeper into the strategy that was unveiled today. There is a new forecast about Canada's finances, and it projects both the federal debt and deficit will be higher than the government expected. The Parliamentary Budget Office, which is independent from government, crunched the numbers and came up with a fiscal outlook that's less rosy than what the finance minister laid out in his spring economic outlook. Mackenzie Gray explains the numbers and the reaction.
Canada is the only G20 country in a recession.
It's been political catnip for the Conservatives.
Canada, are we in a recession?
or is it just a technical one?
The Tories hammering the Liberals since last week's StatsCan report that showed Canada's economy contracted for 2 consecutive quarters, the textbook definition of a recession, a word the Liberals have painstakingly avoided.
We have, in fact, projected a lower deficit by $11 billion. This is what it is about, restoring fiscal discipline.
That discipline now being called out by the Parliamentary Budget Officer. 5 weeks after the Liberals' spring economic statement, the budget watchdog says deficits are set to be on average $4.6 billion higher each of the next 5 years, with this year's deficit rising to $71.8 billion. The Liberals say that's sustainable because they believe the economy will grow faster than debt will each year, a metric investors watch closely. But it's a projection the PBO says has less than a 1% chance of actually happening.
Today's data makes clear that it's certainly worse than the government has been broadcasting.
The main culprit for higher deficits, lower growth, now downgraded to 1.1% this year, which the PBO largely blames on trade tensions with the U.S.
We presented a number of specific proposals to Ambassador Greer.
To try and push for a deal, Dominic LeBlanc meeting with his U.S. counterpart Tuesday, leading to Canadian movement on 2 key Trump irritants, limiting foreign steel imports and a review of a CRTC proposal to force American streamers to pay for more CanCon. But Mark Carney ducked when asked if those moves were done to kickstart formal trade talks.
The minister was down this week, our chief negotiator down this week, made some progress, but lots more to do.
Those are just 2 of many American complaints, including provincial bans on U.S. alcohol.
Our perspective here in Manitoba is no Kuzma, no Boozma.
While there's no date for formal trade talks to start, Donna, Dominic LeBlanc has said he plans to meet again with the U.S. Trade Representative next week.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray, thank you. An Alberta energy company claims Canada stands to lose billions of dollars worth of clean energy investment. Varme Energy says recent changes to the industrial carbon price are putting its viability at risk. The reason, it says, is the updated Memorandum of Understanding between Alberta and the federal government to expand the production and export of Alberta's oil and gas. Heather Yourex-West explains.
It was called a good day for Canada and Alberta, but last month's agreement to lower the price of carbon wasn't what this Edmonton energy company had been hoping for.
It's been a bit of a rug pull. The policy window and the pricing conditions that were set by the government a few years ago have changed pretty drastically.
Varme Energy is developing carbon capture power plants using landfill waste, but its business stands to lose money with carbon priced so low. According to Varme Energy numbers, the current cost to capture and store carbon is about $118 a ton. While the industry had been expecting the carbon price to hit $170 a ton by 2030, the MOU has reduced that to $60. Compare that to the U.S. market, where sequestered carbon is valued at about 160 Canadian dollars a ton.
We've got a little industry coalition of about $3 billion of projects that are near-term ready to go in the next 6 to 9 months. But the universal story is that all of our economics are underwater.
Varme is one of the several projects we looked at earlier this year to assess the diversity and scale of industrial investment that was ultimately at risk.
An analysis by the Pembina Institute estimates $40 billion worth of investment in low-carbon projects could be in jeopardy without further government help.
We expect there to be continuing updates and hopefully improvements to the system. So it's kind of a 1 step back, hopefully 2 steps forward.
A spokesperson for Canada's Environment Minister says clean energy and clean tech companies can participate in an upcoming Contracts for Difference program announced in the MOU the government says will provide certainty investors need. But for companies like Varme, the clock is running out.
We need the government to hear the Mayday call and to act with urgency.
Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Treaty 8 First Nations want Alberta Premier Danielle Smith to call off this fall's referendum question on separation unless consultations with First Nations take place first.
To talk about opening up the Constitution to remove our rights is a human right issue. So it's very serious to us, and we will be here to stop any referendum in any way that we can.
In an open letter to Premier Danielle Smith, Treaty 8 First Nations say she mischaracterized the duty to consult. A court recently ruled the province failed to consult First Nations on a citizen petition calling for a referendum question on separation. Smith argues the duty to consult only applies to major resource projects. The Treaty 8 First Nations say they believe Smith's remarks place Alberta on a course towards direct constitutional conflict with them. In BC, a deeply distressing case of family violence is back in the spotlight. Alan Schoenborn killed his 3 children nearly 2 decades ago and was found not criminally responsible because of a mental disorder. He spent years in a forensic psychiatric hospital and has now been granted a conditional discharge. Sarah McDonald reports on what it means and the reaction.
He brutally killed his own children in 2008, and now Alan Schoenborn will be living largely as a free man.
He wants complete freedom. He doesn't want to get better, he wants to get out.
Schoenborn, who legally changed his name to Ken John Johnson in 2021, granted conditional discharge by BC's Review Board after years of supervised psychiatric treatment. In 2010, he was found not criminally responsible due to mental illness in the deaths of 10-year-old Caitlin, 8-year-old Max, and 5-year-old Corden. Their mother, Darcy, later died in 2019. Dave Teixeira continues her fight for justice.
Darcy Clark is the 4th victim. It just took her 11 years longer to pass away from a broken heart. And so while the children were killed by their father, Darcy, the mom, had all those years of torment.
The not criminally responsible designation has further polarized public and political sentiment in the case. Schoenborn technically considered a patient, not a prisoner, when it comes to consideration for any new freedoms.
I think this is one of the most appalling decisions that has been made, and it will rightfully create a lot of outrage in this province and quite frankly should across the country.
Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West, whose municipality neighbors the facility that long held Schoenborn, calls the case a cause for re-examination of federal and provincial legislation.
There are individuals who do not deserve to be in public.
Schoenborn, who now looks nothing like this, will be living under multiple conditions at an undisclosed location, with his conditional discharge set to be reviewed in 1 year's time. Sarah McDonald, Global News, Coquitlam, BC.
The Ontario Premier prefers to fly private. Coming up, he explains why and will tell you how much it's costing provincial taxpayers. Weeks after selling back a private jet the Ontario government quietly bought and faced backlash for, the Premier is defending his use of charter flights. Government documents show Doug Ford's office spent more than $140,000 on private charter flights last year. Colin D'Mello lays out the travel costs and why Ford says it's justified.
During the 2025 Ontario election campaign, as Premier Doug Ford stared down U.S. President Donald Trump, the progressive conservative politician flew on private aircraft. Shortly after Ford won his 3rd term, the penchant for private travel took off. Ford's expenses show his office chartered small jets on 5 separate trips, costing the Ontario taxpayer more than $140,000.
By the time you leave, you wait in line, spend about 7 hours your whole day. If you think that's productive as a leader of the 19th largest economy in the entire world, $1.3 trillion, if you think that's efficient, well, we're going to disagree.
Between March and July of 2025, Ford racked up thousands in private travel. There was a trip to Alberta to meet with Danielle Smith. That cost nearly $53,000 in chartered flights. Ford flew to Boston to meet with American governors, costing Ontarians $20,000 for private trips. And one trip to Ottawa to meet with the Prime Minister cost taxpayers $17,000 to fly private.
The Premier has gotten a taste of the good life, clearly. And let me tell you, there are no shortage also of commercial flights to Ottawa or trains from Toronto.
The chartered flights also appear to have convinced the Premier to purchase a $28.9 million jet for his official travel. After selling off that plane under controversy, the Premier says he has no plans to change course again.
Let's just remind the public, there's no Premier in the history of this province taken more commercial flights than I have, and I'm going to continue to charter when needed.
Critics say this is a departure from Premier Doug Ford's penny-pinching ways. In 2018, when he was first elected, the Premier promised to stay grounded and, true to his word, would only travel across the province by car. Fast forward 8 years later, and the Premier's pivot to private has left many wondering what's behind the evolution. In Toronto, Colin D'Mello, Global News.
Serena Williams is making her return to tennis alongside Canadian Victoria Mboko. Mboko says it's an honor to share the court with one of the greatest athletes of all time. The 19-year-old is ranked number 9 in the world. Williams, who is 44, hasn't played professionally since 2022. Risks versus rewards ahead. Can the Prime Minister's new strategy balance the safety of Canadians with the benefits of AI? AI is here. The question is whether it will improve the lives of all Canadians or benefit only a few. Those are the words of Canada's Prime Minister as he unveiled his government's national strategy on artificial intelligence today. For some analysis of it, Richard St. Pierre is with me from Montreal. He's senior advisor on quantum and AI sovereignty at Quebec business technology firm Levio. Richard, thanks for being here. The Prime Minister says this strategy that he unveiled today will develop safe, reliable, and sovereign AI in Canada. Do you think he's overpromising?
I think it's much better than whatever was there before. So, yeah, he says strategy for AI for all. And I think the all-encompassing, including empathy towards others, is part and central to the unveiling of the policy that was done today. He says trust, opportunity, and sovereignty. These are basically the 3 things that he outlined during his press conference today.
So that's kind of the overarching theme for it. I guess the devil's in the details, if you like. I wonder if policymakers can possibly keep up with the speed of AI developments, and could policies be out of date by the time they're implemented?
Well, policies have this undue course of always being late with the game, right? And it's not strictly limited to AI. It's pretty much any aspect of life. AI has this thing of being very fast. And I would advise everyone that says it's too fast, it's actually going to be a lot faster. I would bet that by 2030, let's say, it's about going to be 20 times faster than now.
The Prime Minister said today Canada is too dependent on foreign AI providers. Is it realistic to think that Canada can build sovereign systems when supply chains we know are global and cloud computing ecosystems are controlled largely by 3 large American firms?
There's two aspects to this question, right? When you do a query on ChatGPT or Google Gemini, your compute is actually going to the US. And right now, some of the initiative in that strategy will work to correct that, to have some of that infrastructure within Canada. You rightfully said that it's a global system. So that means that sovereignty doesn't mean protectionism or national borders. So it means that we are going to be able to compute and have access and control to our data here in Canada, but being open to our trading partners, whether it's the US or the other G7 countries.
But what will it take to do that, to build these supercomputers so that national security data and personal data is actually held inside Canada?
Well, right now, as I was mentioning, most of it is simply going to the States because there's no other alternatives. So part of what is happening, especially out west in Canada, BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, are building massive data center infrastructure, good or bad. This is what needs to be done right now to win or be part of that AI race. And the eastern provinces are a bit lagging behind compared to the western provinces on that account.
So what kind of time frame are we looking at, do you think, before these, in order to get these things in place?
The usual time frame for a large-scale data center, and most of them have been announced, is a 2 to 3 year time frame. So expect that before the decade is over, we will have a lot of sovereign offering within Canada, and that's a very realistic time frame.
The Prime Minister did say today that AI could be weaponized against us. Is that the risk if we don't get this right?
He's totally right. And although it may take many forms, the weaponization could be as simple as pulling the plug. So if all our data is sitting somewhere that we don't control and somebody simply starts or thinks of shutting down the lights, that is weaponization in itself. And this is much simpler than, and it's been seen to happen, unfortunately, over the past couple of years.
Well, I'd love to talk to you more. There's so much we didn't get to, but thanks for taking the time we had. Richard St. Pierre, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Next, how a Sherpa missing for days on Mount Everest was found alive. There's a remarkable story of survival on Mount Everest. A Sherpa, a climbing guide, had not been seen for 6 days, and it was thought he died on the mountain until he was spotted crawling to base camp. Taria Isri picks up the story.
A rescue helicopter carrying a man many, including his family, presumed dead. The Nepali Sherpa was flown to a hospital in Kathmandu after he was found alive on the slopes of Mount Everest. When we first heard the news, we asked for photos to confirm it was really him, says his daughter. Dawa Sherpa, also known as Hillary Dawa Sherpa, after the famed mountaineer Edmund Hillary, was an experienced guide. The 52-year-old had been missing for nearly a week after he was separated from his client on the descent. It's not clear how or why they split up. He was part of the last teams on the world's tallest peak, with the climbing season drawing to a close.
What should have been 5 days to the summit and back took us 11 days.
A fellow climber described the brutal conditions and even posted a tribute to Dawa.
Tragically, on the way back down, we lost one of our Sherpas.
A seemingly tragic end to a record year, with more than 1,000 people reaching the summit. After 6 agonizing days without a trace, his family began funeral rites, until a stunning discovery. A cleaning crew dismantling ropes and equipment found him, crawling through the snow above base camp. Other than frostbite, he appears to be in good health. We are very happy, says his daughter. One community leader said Sherpas grow up in the Himalayas. Had it been anyone else, they likely would not have made it out. Taria Isri, Global News, Montreal.
Wow, that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Marsh Lake, Yukon. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.